Hey man, there comes a point in your life where you realize women were never complicated. Your behavior was not because you meant any harm, but because you were raised to believe that being overly nice, overly available, overly giving, and overly emotional would guarantee love. You thought kindness would win her loyalty, effort would earn her affection, and consistency would secure her respect. But the world showed you something different. The harder you tried, the faster she drifted. The more you gave, the less you appreciated, and the more you chased, the more invisible you became. That's when the truth starts to hit. Women aren't hard to understand, but saying makes everything feel impossible. Anti-simp behavior isn't arrogance, cruelty, or cold-hearted detachment. It's simply the opposite of self-abandonment. It's the moment you stop giving a woman the emotional power to validate your existence. It's the moment you stop begging for attention, stop proving your worth, stop sacrificing your standards just to keep the peace. When you understand this shift, everything starts to make sense. You see that women respond to strength, not the loud, aggressive kind, but the quiet independence of a man who doesn't need to be needed. When a woman feels you have a life outside of her, a center that doesn't crumble when she pulls away, and a backbone that stays firm, no matter what she says, she becomes easier to understand, easier to navigate, easier to connect with. The reason Sing destroys attraction is simple. It places her on a pedestal she never asked to stand on. It makes her feel like she's interviewing you for the position of being worthy, instead of two humans learning each other equally. When you're too available, too accommodating, too emotionally open before she's earned it, you create a pressure she doesn't know how to respond to. She senses you're seeking approval rather than partnership. An approval-seeking energy suffocates feminine interest. But when you adopt anti-simp behavior, when you stand in yourself with confidence instead of collapsing into her world, she feels something entirely different. Curiosity, respect, and attraction. The biggest shift comes when you stop tying your self-worth to her level of interest. S behavior is built on emotional dependency. If she likes me, I'm valuable. If she pulls away, I'm worthless. Anti-simp behavior removes that dependence. You stop needing her response to confirm your identity. You stop chasing. When she withdraws, you stop offering emotional labor she hasn't earned. You move through the connection with calm, indifference, not coldness, but neutrality. And that neutrality changes the entire dynamic. Suddenly, her mood swings don't shake you. Her silence doesn't panic you. Her tests don't offend you. You're no longer reacting to her emotions. You're grounded in your own. The moment you stop chasing, you start noticing how women naturally move toward men who don't need them. Not because you're playing games, but because you've removed desperation from your energy. Women feel it instantly. They can sense when a man would drop everything just for a scrap of attention, and that energy kills desire. But when you carry yourself with a sense of internal fulfillment, when you show up because you want to, not because you need to, she feels differently around you. She relaxes, she becomes more feminine, she leans in, because women aren't attracted to pressure, they're attracted to presence. And anti-simp behavior gives you that presence. You start noticing how your silence says more than your words ever did. When you stop responding instantly, stop explaining yourself unnecessarily, stop over-communicating to prove you're not like other guys. She feels the weight of your absence, not because you're ignoring her, but because you're not performing for her attention. Women are surrounded by simps. Men who chase, men who beg, men who validate them endlessly for nothing. So when she meets a man who doesn't collapse into her beauty, who doesn't lose his composure around her, who doesn't treat her presence like a miracle. She becomes intrigued. She starts thinking about you. She starts questioning you. She starts wanting your attention because you're the one man who isn't demanding hers. Anti-simp behavior teaches you something essential. A woman must invest emotionally before she can value a man. When you simp, you do all the investing yourself. You overextend while she sits comfortably, offering nothing in return. But when you stop filling the space she has to initiate, she has to communicate, she has to show effort. And that's when you finally see her true intentions. Anti-simp behavior doesn't push women away. It filters out the ones who never cared, while drawing closer the ones who actually do. It protects your heart by forcing her to reveal hers. Another shift happens inside you. You stop idealizing her. Sing comes from fantasy, putting her on a pedestal, imagining she's perfect, believing she's the prize. Anti-simp behavior brings you back to reality. You see her as a human being, not a savior. A woman with flaws, fears, emotional inconsistencies, insecurities, and contradictions. Not someone who determines your value, but someone who must earn her place in your life, just as you earn yours and hers. That mutual earning creates balance, and balance creates attraction. When you treat her like an equal, not a goddess, she finally relaxes enough to show who she truly is. The more you embrace anti-simp behavior, the more you learn the beauty of restraint. You don't give everything at once. You don't reveal your entire emotional world too soon. You don't offer commitment before she's shown consistency. You let the connection breathe instead of suffocating it with eagerness. This restraint gives you power, not power over her, but power over yourself. You start choosing intentionally instead of emotionally. You move slower, but with purpose. You evaluate her actions instead of her potential. And because you're not rushing to secure her, she begins trying to secure you. And eventually women stop feeling like a mystery, not because you've mastered manipulation or memorized tactics, but because you finally understand that attraction has always been simple. Women fall for the man who doesn't need their validation to function. They fall for the man who values himself more than he values approval. They fall for the man who protects his energy, his time, his dignity. When you stop sing, you stop giving away your power. And when you stop giving away your power, you become the type of man women chase. Not because you're pretending, but because you've built a life where you don't need them to feel whole. Something powerful begins to shift inside you. When you embrace anti-simp behavior, you stop accepting crumbs. You stop convincing yourself that minimal effort from her is just how she is. You stop lowering your standards out of fear that she'll walk away if you raise them. Instead, you start observing what she actually gives, not what you wish she would give. And when you remove your emotional hunger from the equation, you see everything clearly. Who's genuinely interested? Who's bored? Who's using you? And who's only keeping you around for convenience? This clarity doesn't make dating harder. It makes it unbelievably simple. You stop chasing question marks and start aligning only with women who show up with consistency. As you keep embracing this mindset, you notice another truth. Women respect the man. They cannot emotionally bully, not because you push back aggressively, but because you don't react at all. When she throws a subtle insult, you don't collapse. When she tries to get a rise out of you, you don't flinch. When she threatens to leave, you calmly allow the door to remain open. And that calmness changes her entire approach, because for the first time, she realizes she's dealing with a man who has emotional discipline, the ability to remain steady even when she tries to throw him off balance. That steadiness earns more attraction than any compliment ever could. Then you start noticing how different your conversations become. You're not trying to fill every silence. You're not forcing connection. You're not oversharing your feelings just to appear genuine. Instead, you speak slowly, intentionally, and without urgency. You allow pauses. You allow tension. You allow curiosity. And women respond to that space. They start leaning in, offering more, sharing more, revealing more. Because you're no longer acting like a man afraid of losing her. You're acting like a man, evaluating whether keeping her is worth your time. The dynamic shifts entirely when she feels your presence, but never your desperation. Auntie, simp behavior teaches you a profound lesson. Women aren't attracted to ease. They're attracted to emotional friction, not chaos or toxicity, but mystery, challenge, and unpredictability. When you stop seeing, you stop being predictable. She can no longer anticipate your reactions, your text, your energy. She feels a tension around you, a sense that she doesn't fully have you, and that tension awakens something primal in her. She begins to seek your approval instead of expecting it. She begins to wonder what you're thinking instead of assuming she already knows. She begins to value your attention because it's no longer guaranteed. As you keep embodying this mindset, something incredible happens. You become more attractive without even trying. Not because you're playing a role, but because anti-simp behavior forces you to build a stronger version of yourself. You start improving your body, your finances, your personality, not to impress women, but because your attention is finally turned inward. You stop wasting time chasing someone who doesn't value you. That time becomes fuel for your growth. And ironically, the moment you start building yourself for you, women begin chasing the man. You're becoming the one who isn't accessible to everyone. You begin to see the games clearly too. The delayed replies, the sudden busy streaks, the half-hearted interest, the manipulative compliments, the strategic withdrawal. These things used to confuse you. Now they barely register, because you understand that women test men not to hurt them, but to identify something. Is he strong or is he needy? Is he grounded or is he emotionally unstable? And your anti-simp behavior answers those questions for her without you saying a single word. She recognizes instantly that you're not the man who folds under pressure. Your emotional discipline becomes the attraction. You also stop rewarding bad behavior. When she becomes disrespectful, you withdraw. When she tries to provoke you, you remain centered. When she uses silence as a weapon, you turn it into peace. Sigh, argue, negotiate, plead, you detach. And that detachment becomes the lesson she remembers. Women don't learn from your explanations. They learn from your absence. When your presence is valuable, your silence becomes even more valuable. And the moment she feels that shift, she stops taking you for granted. You become the man she can't replace easily. Anti-simp behavior changes the way you experience rejection. You stop seeing it as a wound and start seeing it as information. You stop chasing women who show minimal effort. You stop taking it personally. When she pulls away, instead, you treat it as data. She's not aligned, she's not invested, she's not emotionally available. And with that mindset, rejection becomes effortless to process. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of the mismatch between your energy and hers. The pain disappears because the expectations disappear. That allows you to move with a calmness that used to feel impossible. Then comes the moment where you realize something life-changing. You're no longer afraid. of losing women. Not because you've stopped caring, but because you finally understand abundance, not in terms of numbers, but in terms of self-worth. You recognize that your presence, your masculinity, your energy are valuable. You recognize that women don't choose men based on perfection, but based on how they feel around them. When you're no longer performing guessing, chasing, or proving, you show up as someone relaxed and grounded, and that's the version of you women find irresistible. And eventually, you understand the truth every man needs to learn. Women become easy once you stop trying to win them. Attraction has never been earned through effort. It's earned through emotional self-respect. When you stop sing, you stop trying to force connection. You let things unfold. Naturally, you allow women to invest. You recognize when to pull back and when to let go. And because you move from strength instead of scarcity, the right women find you. The wrong women avoid you, and you finally walk through the world with the quiet confidence of a man who has nothing to prove and everything to offer. You also begin to understand how backward your old approach was. You used to think that giving more would make you more valuable. You assumed loyalty would inspire loyalty, that affection would inspire affection, that prioritizing her would make her prioritize you. But female psychology doesn't work like that. Women aren't drawn to men who give endlessly. They're drawn to men who give intentionally, men who offer presence, not pressure, men who give affection without losing their backbone, men who make them feel chosen but never owned. When you stop sing, you stop giving out of fear and start giving out of strength, and the entire dynamic shifts in your favor. You become a man who doesn't apologize for having boundaries. You don't bend to avoid conflict. You don't hide your standards, and you don't soften your truth just to keep her comfortable. Strangely, this earns you more admiration, not less. Women don't stay with men they can control. They stay with men they can trust. And a man without boundaries is unpredictable. Not in an exciting way, but in a destabilizing way. But when you hold your ground, when you stand firm, even when she pushes, she stops testing from a place of dominance and starts engaging from a place of respect. You start noticing how calm you feel around women. Now, the anxiety that used to control your behavior, the panic when she didn't reply, the overthinking when her tone changed, the desperation for reassurance begins to fade because anti-simp behavior gives you something you never had before. Emotional space, space to breathe, space to think clearly, space to observe her patterns without drowning in them, space to decide whether you want her, not just whether she wants you. That shift alone separates you from the men she's used to the ones who collapse at the first sign of emotional turbulence. Another powerful transformation takes place when you stop trying to fill every gap in conversation, every pause in texting, every moment of silence. With effort, you let things unfold without forcing them. You realize that tension is not the enemy. Tension is attraction. The silence between messages, the moment she wonders what you're doing, the period where she questions her own feelings. These moments create emotional gravity. Simps rush to eliminate that tension because they fear losing her. But a grounded man lets that tension build because he knows interest grows in the unknown. Women lean toward the man who doesn't reveal himself all at once. You also stop rewarding flakiness when she becomes inconsistent. You don't double your efforts to win her back when she acts uninterested. You don't increase your emotional investment to convince her otherwise. Instead, you match her energy not out of spite, but out of self-respect. You let the space grow. You let the distance speak for itself. You let her feel the absence of your attention. And if she values you, she returns with clarity. If she doesn't, she fades. Either way, you win, because your peace is no longer tied to her presence. Anti-simp behavior shows you the difference between real interest and convenience. A woman who is genuinely into you puts in effort even when she's busy. She communicates even when she's tired. She shows up even when life gets chaotic. But a woman who only keeps you around for attention drops breadcrumbs while expecting you to chase the illusion of connection. The old you would have fallen for it. But now you see straight through the performance. And because you walk away from anything that requires you to beg you, no longer waste years of your life on women who never intended to stay. As you grow into this mindset, you start noticing how women soften around you. They speak differently, they behave differently, they carry themselves differently. Not because you're manipulating them, but because your energy gives them something rare, emotional direction. You're no longer submitting to their emotional storms. You're guiding the direction of the connection. You become the anchor, the grounding point, the stable force in the interaction. And women naturally become more feminine around a man who's comfortable in his masculine presence. Eventually, you realize that anti-simp behavior isn't about doing less. It's about valuing yourself more. You don't stop giving. You stop overgiving. You don't stop caring. You stop caring blindly. You don't stop texting. You stop texting like your life depends on her reply. Everything becomes intentional. Every move becomes aligned with your worth. Every interaction becomes grounded. And this version of you is the one women chase. Not because you're withholding affection, but because your affection actually means something. Now you start seeing how predictable female attraction is when you stop flooding the connection with effort. Most women don't lose interest because the man didn't try hard enough. They lose interest because he tried too hard too soon. He gave before she earned. He committed before she invested. He built a fantasy version of her in his head and projected it onto a woman who hadn't proven anything yet. Anti-simp behavior removes that fantasy. You deal with reality, not potential. And because your expectations are grounded, your interactions become smoother, cleaner, and far less emotionally draining. By the time you truly understand all this, women stop feeling overwhelming. They stop feeling confusing. They stop feeling unpredictable, because you're no longer navigating them from insecurity. You're navigating from self-worth. You know when to lean in. You know when to pull back. You know when to stay. And most importantly, you know when to walk away. That knowledge makes you unbeatable, not because you never lose yourself. You notice how different your reactions become the moment you stop centering your world around her. When she takes long to reply, you don't crumble inside. When she texts cold, you don't spiral into overthinking. When she pulls back, you don't start asking if you're not enough. Instead, you breathe. You let time pass. You continue your life. You stay rooted in your routines, your goals, your priorities. And because your emotional state is no longer tied to her behavior, she begins to experience something unfamiliar. The feeling of being drawn toward a man she cannot shake with her inconsistency. Women don't fall for men who react easily. They fall for men with emotional gravity. Anti-simp behavior helps you see the subtle ways you used to betray yourself for love. The jokes you laughed at, even when they stung a little. The disrespect you tolerated because you didn't want to overreact. The boundaries you abandoned because you feared losing her. The endless patience you offered even when she gave you nothing but confusion. Now, with clarity, you feel a heaviness when you remember those moments, not because they make you angry at her, but because you see how little you valued yourself back then. And that realization changes the entire foundation of how you show up with women. You refuse to be that version of yourself ever again. You also stop rewarding emotional manipulation. When she tries to guilt trip you, you don't fold. When she tries to provoke jealousy, you don't take the bait. When she threatens to pull away, if you don't act right, you stay calm. Women quickly learn that you cannot be moved by panic, drama, or emotional theatrics. And the moment she realizes this, the manipulative strategies stop, because manipulation only works on men who fear abandonment. Anti-simp behavior removes that fear completely. You would rather be alone with dignity than together in desperation. Something profound happens as you detach emotionally. You begin to evaluate women with honesty instead of fantasy. You notice her patterns. You notice her effort. You notice her alignment with your values. You're no longer blinded by her beauty, her attention, or your own loneliness. You judge her based on who she shows herself to be, not who you imagine she might become. And this shift protects you from heartbreak more than anything else. Men who simp suffer because they fall in love with potential. Men who practice anti-simp behavior only invest in proven reality. You become a man who isn't moved by superficial things. A compliment doesn't sway you. A flirtatious moment doesn't throw you off. A pretty face doesn't hypnotize you. You've lived enough, lost enough, learned enough to know that genuine connection goes far beyond initial spark. She can't win you with attention. She has to win you with character. Most men crave affection so desperately that they give their hearts to the first woman who smiles at them. You're no longer one of those men. You require consistency, not charm. You require effort, not excuses. You require reality, not fantasy. You begin to understand that the man who sets the pace controls the dynamic. When you were sing, you allowed her to set the tempo. When to talk, how much to talk, what level of intimacy felt comfortable, how fast things moved. You adjusted yourself constantly to her moods, her hesitations, her comfort zone. Now you move differently. You initiate when it feels right. You pull back when you need distance. You choose the rhythm, not out of dominance, but out of self-assurance. Women naturally adapt to the emotional pace of a grounded man, not because they're submissive, but because they crave leadership from someone who knows where he's going. Anti-simp behavior also reveals which women are emotionally mature and which ones rely on chaos to feel alive. A mature woman respects your boundaries, values your time, and meets your effort. An immature woman will try to disrupt your balance just to see if she can control your reactions. The old you would have fallen into that trap, desperate to prove you're worthy of her, choosing you. But now you don't entertain it. You don't dance for her attention. You don't reward instability. You simply step away calmly, and by doing so, you protect yourself from years of emotional exhaustion disguised as romance. One of the most freeing parts of anti-sim behavior is that you stop over-explaining yourself. You stop justifying your standards. You stop writing paragraphs to defend your boundaries. You stop apologizing for things that don't require apology. Your communication becomes short, clear, intentional. You say what needs to be said and leave the rest alone. Women respect that directness, not because it's harsh, but because it's masculine. You're not trying to be liked. You're trying to be understood, and paradoxically, the less you chase approval, the more she values your presence. You also stop feeling obligated to keep broken connections alive. If she loses interest, you let her go. If she stops investing, you withdraw completely. If she becomes disrespectful, you remove your energy without warning. Simps stay and negotiate. You move forward because your dignity is not up for discussion. This mindset gives you a quiet power, the power to end situations that drain you instead of desperately trying to fix what was never working. And women can sense this strength. Some fear it, others admire it, but none forget it. And finally, everything becomes easier because you no longer operate from a place of emotional hunger. You're not chasing affection. You're not begging for connection. You're not auditioning for a role in someone else's life. You've stepped into the version of yourself. Who leads? Who chooses? Who decides? Women become easy, not because you manipulate them, but because you've removed the one thing that once made relationships difficult: your own neediness. You've replaced insecurity with confidence, desperation with purpose, sing with self-respect, and the world responds differently to a man who finally understands his own worth. What surprises you most is how steady you feel in situations that once made you anxious. A delayed reply no longer feels like rejection. A shift in her tone no longer feels like abandonment. A moment of distance no longer feels like a sign that you need to try harder. Anti-simp behavior rewires your emotional instincts. You stop interpreting every small change as an emergency. You stop assigning meaning to things that mean nothing. And because you're no longer reacting from fear, you navigate women with the calmness of someone who knows he cannot be shaken. That calmness becomes your signature, the thing that separates you from nearly every man she's ever met. You also begin to see how differently women treat men who don't collapse under emotional pressure. When she's upset, she expects you to mirror her chaos. When she's distant, she expects you to chase. When she pulls back, she expects panic. But when your reaction is stillness, not cold, but grounded, she feels something powerful: trust. She realizes you aren't moved by temporary emotions, that you won't crumble simply because she's having a moment, and that stability is what femininity naturally gravitates toward. She may test you, but you're no longer afraid of the tests. You don't see them as threats. You see them as windows into whether she's aligned with your life or not. Anti-simp behavior also exposes how women behave when they realize they don't control your emotions. Some lean in, they soften, they feel safe, they respect your leadership, but others react the opposite way. They get frustrated, confused, even threatened, because they were used to men whose emotional world revolved around them. When they meet a man who doesn't bend immediately, they feel unprepared. And that's when you see the truth. Some women aren't looking for a partner. They're looking for emotional dominance. The old you would have submitted to that dynamic without seeing the danger. The new you walks away calmly because any relationship that requires you to shrink is one you want, no part of. Something incredible happens as this mindset becomes natural. Women who once felt out of your league no longer intimidate you. Their beauty doesn't paralyze you. Their confidence doesn't silence you. Their attention doesn't control you, because anti-simp behavior removes the pedestal entirely. You're no longer chasing an illusion of perfection. You're evaluating a real person. Whether she's gorgeous or average, outgoing or shy, it doesn't matter. You treat everyone the same with respect, but never with self-doubt. Women sense this equality immediately, and the ones who expected you to worship them suddenly feel the discomfort of not being able to manipulate you with looks alone. You also stop rushing intimacy. You're in no hurry to lock her down, no rush to secure commitment before she's earned it. You let her reveal herself slowly. You watch how she handles conflict, how she reacts to boundaries, how she behaves when she's upset, how consistent she is when the excitement fades, and you realize that women reveal far more through behavior than through words. Simps rush to commitment because they fear losing the opportunity. But men with self-respect move like they have options because they do, and women feel that difference. In every step of the connection, you begin appreciating something you once overlooked. Silence, not the silent treatment. Silence as a form of emotional intelligence. You don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to justify every decision. You don't need to argue every disagreement. Sometimes you say nothing because nothing needs to be said. That quiet control unsettles women who are used to men who overreact, and it attracts women who crave a grounding presence. Your silence becomes communication. Communication that says, I'm not here to impress you. I'm not here to battle you. I'm here to lead my life with or without you. Eventually, you reach a level where peace becomes more attractive to you than any relationship. You stop tolerating drama, manipulation, emotional instability, or disrespect, because you remember what it felt like to lose yourself trying to impress a woman. You remember the version of you who waited by the phone. You remember the sleepless nights, the emotional exhaustion, the humiliation of chasing someone who wasn't invested. Anti-simp behavior doesn't just change how you date, it changes how you see your own value. Peace becomes your new, non-negotiable. And if a woman disrupts that peace, you don't argue, you exit. You start noticing how, naturally, women chase men who are comfortable, letting them go. Not because they want indifference, but because feminine energy is drawn to masculine certainty. A man who can walk away without fear is a man she can trust with closeness, because his presence isn't rooted in desperation, it's rooted in self-control. The more secure you become in yourself, the more she invests emotionally. You no longer need to pull her closer. Your energy does that for you. Anti-simp behavior turns you into the man who sets the tone, not the man who follows it. With time, you learn the quiet difference between love and attachment. Love flows from strength. Attachment flows from insecurity. When you were sing, you confused the two. You thought the intensity you felt was love, when really it was fear. Fear of losing her, fear of rejection, fear of being alone. Now you love without fear. You choose with clarity. You give without overextending. And because you aren't dependent on her for identity or stability, your love becomes healthier, calmer, more grounded. The relationship improves, not because she changed, but because you finally grew into a man who doesn't collapse under emotional weight. And in the end, women become easy because you finally become difficult. Not difficult to love, but difficult to disrespect, difficult to manipulate, difficult to replace, difficult to shake. You've stepped into the version of yourself who leads with purpose, not insecurity, who gives with strength, not desperation, who loves with clarity, not fantasy. Anti-simp behavior isn't about doing less for women. It's about never doing less for yourself again. And once you reach that level, once you understand this mindset, not as a tactic, but as a lifestyle, dating, relationships, attraction, everything becomes simple. Because you're no longer navigating it as a boy hoping to be chosen. You're navigating it as a man who chooses.